Jack.
Attorney.
Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, April 12th, 2017 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. The Planning and Zoning Commission is a citizen advisory group to the City Council. We are charged with making recommendations concerning land use plans, planning process, and/or matters of plan implementation. All regular meetings of the P&Z are quasi-judicial in nature and are recorded for record retention and minute transcription. There was an agenda clarification meeting held at 6 p.m. The following is the official agenda of the Planning and Zoning Commission tonight. Discussion and commission action will be limited to those items on the agenda. Any citizen who wishes to address the commission shall first be recognized by the chair and shall give his or her name and address for the record. If a citizen wishes to read documentation of any sort to the commission, he or she shall first seek permission of the chair. A 3-minute time limitation is requested for presentations to the commission. Agenda item 1, roll call and disclosure of conflict of interest. Item 2, elections. The commission may wish to have elections for a new chair and chairperson. Item 3 is approval of minutes from March 8, 2017, and item 4 is a public hearing or annexation. So with that, I ask Terry to call roll.
Brennan?
My name is Jack Brennan. I live in the Johnny Creek area. I did make a site visit, and I have nothing else to report.
Hancock?
Bill Hancock. I live in the Fremont Heights area. I have nothing else to report.
Long?
My name is Steve Long. I live in the South Fairway area. I have nothing to report.
Loveland?
I'm Ryan Loveland. I live in the Alameda area. I have nothing to report.
O'Connor?
I'm Sarah O'Connor, and I live in the College neighborhood area, and I have nothing to report.
Satterfield?
Ryan Satterfield from the Highland area. Nothing to report.
All right. And Kathleen Lewis is excused today. All right. Now we'll move on to elections. Do we have any discussion on elections or nomination?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Brian Satterfield as the chair of the Planning and Zoning Community Development.
I'd second that nomination.
Okay, so we have a nomination for Satterfield. Do we now vote on the individuals, or do we
There's a second nomination.
and a second? Wait, oh, you want a second nomination?
Well, if there's someone else you want to...
Do we have any more
Parliamentary.
nominations? Does anybody want to
Suppose I
nominate?
better nominate somebody. I would nominate Bill Hancock to serve as the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay. Do we need a second on that? I'm not actually 100% sure how elections are supposed to work, Terry.
Yeah, we've not done many of these. Is there any guidance?
You don't get a second, then
It dies.
We need a second for Bill.
We have a second on Mr. Hancock.
Already nominated.
Okay, well, with that, Mr. Hancock's nomination does die. Can he decline the nomination then, if you really want to do it?
Always good. Or at least vote against it.
He hasn't yet called for the vote. I think
She hasn't yet called, yeah.
Yeah, he can decline.
You can't decline.
Who declined?
Okay, do you do that before or after the vote will be called?
I would say 4.
Are you declining, Mr. Satter?
No, I see where this is headed. So I won't decline.
Okay. Well, can we call for the vote on that?
Yes. Long?
Yes.
Hancock?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yes.
Satterfield?
Yes.
And Loveland?
Yes, you also have O'Connor though too.
Oh,
Yes.
Well, unanimous on that one. All right, Satterfield, we will need a vice chair still. We'll need a nomination for vice chair.
So would he then take charge of the meeting?
I asked Aislinn that.
Right.
She said it would wait till next time, but I don't know if she was, do you want me to immediately step down at this point?
No, you don't have to. No, it's entirely up to you to do
All
that.
right, well, we will have that come into effect after this next meeting. We do need a vice chair, though.
I'd move to have Mr. Brennan serve as the vice chair.
I decline.
Brennan declines. Okay.
I make the motion that Bill Hancock is vice chair.
All right, so we have Long motioning Hancock
I'll second it.
with the second by Satterfield. Let's go ahead and call for that one then.
Call for the vote.
Long,
Yes.
Satterfield,
Yes.
Brennan,
Yes.
Hancock,
Yes.
O'Connor,
Yes.
Loveland.
Yes. All right, so that puts Hancock as the new vice chair. And elections are done. We'll now move on to minutes from March 8th, 2017. Do we have any discussion or motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as written from the March 8th meeting.
Second that.
So we had Satterfield a motion and Long second. Can we go ahead and call that?
Satterfield,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Brennan,
Yes.
Hancock,
Yes.
O'Connor,
Yes.
Loveland.
Yes. All right, minutes are approved. We now move on to the public hearing of, the part everybody was here for, of our meeting. The time has been set aside for commission to hear comments from the public regarding the request by Jake and Amber Richards to annex and zone approximately 709 acres at the east end of Running Iron Lane. The proposed zoning for the property is residential medium density, single family, RMS. Do we have the presenter? What? Does he goes first or the?
Does he have an engineer?
What, city? Okay. No, it'd be,
The applicant.
yeah, it's the applicant. Yeah, sorry. Yes, if the applicant can give us our presentation or speak. Who's the applicant? Come on up,
What do
Ed.
you want me to present? Just my part of it?
Well, yeah,
Present
Sorry,
everybody.
I wasn't making sure what you...
yeah, sorry. So if the applicant needs to come up and present their
Name.
request. Okay. My name is Jake Richards. I know it said on Williams, but it's Richards. 5206 Daisy Lane, Pocatello, Johnny Creek area. The property that's being looked at, I looked over the notes that you guys have presented to me. Me and my family just want to build a home. It's as simple as it is. We just are looking to see what we need to get done. I really would rather not be annexed into the city, just because of regulations, but also because of the area itself. I know that the road is not up to code, and I know that there'd be extensive work that would need to be done for it to be brought to code. And I think it would affect a lot of the homeowners in that area as well, including the fact that the road is not, like I said, if it's not to code, there's going to be some things that have to be done, including curb and sidewalk, which you guys have already put into the paperwork. And the cost associated, to me, is quite a bit more than necessary for the piece of property that I'm doing. I'm not, and I know in here it talks about it being a development, but it's a home. So technically it's being developed, but it's just a single home. And I guess myself, I don't see the need for it to be annexed into the city. I mean, that's just an opinion, I know, but with what you guys presented to me and the cost associated with doing those things, it really seems like a lot to me for it to be annexed for the value, I guess. It's just my personal residence. That's all it's for at this point. That's all that we have intention of doing. And obviously, if the county would have given us a permit, we wouldn't even be in the situation as it is right now. But I would like to point out one little thing on here that you guys made mention of. This is from your guys' paperwork that you sent to me, talking about the annexation statutes, the very first thing. One thing it says in there, it says, it allows annexation to take place wherein all private landowners have consented to annexation. I don't want to be annexed. So I don't know that I have much more that I could say at this point about that. I don't know if you have questions for me regarding it or not. I've never been to one of these. I apologize. I don't know how it really works. I'm just trying to participate so I can do whatever I need to do.
Question.
Go ahead.
So you want to just build a single-family home? Are you aware of the location of the floodplain?
Yes.
And the large gas easement that runs right through?
100% aware of it. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I've talked to the gas company. They've come in to check it out. There's a single pipeline that's there. That one is a newer pipeline. It's buried very deep. He does not have any concern at all for me driving whatever over the top of it. They just have to get a simple paperwork done for them to say that we can drive over. We talked about what might be the heaviest thing.
You can't build on it.
No, of course not. There's a 70, he thought it might be a 70-foot easement, 30 one way, 40 the other. I'm not even close to the easement on building on it. No permanent structures. You could put other things on there, but no permanent structures, no trees that are close to the pipeline. They have to approve things, but yes, I have talked to them about it.
You should get that document in writing so you have it in your possession.
Sure, they haven't presented it to me yet. He's in the process of putting together the actual details, because what he presented to me first was for the pipeline that's actually a little bit farther to the south, that there's actually 2 pipelines, and that wasn't the proper one. So he's trying to get that information to me now. But I do not have that at this point, because they haven't presented it to me, because they haven't had, the person that came didn't have the details for the right pipeline.
Okay.
Mr. Satterfield.
Yeah. So Jake, if you talked about these improvements that the city has kind of recommended take place, if the city were to say that those improvements wouldn't need to happen right now, outside of the improvements, are there other objections that you have to annexation?
I don't think really. I mean, I prefer to be in the county, to be on my own, so that I can do what I want a little bit more. The restrictions are a little more lenient. I'm not doing anything crazy out there, but there are less restrictions with the county, and that would be one thing that I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything in particular as far as the restriction goes, or just kind of blanket, the county's a little easier?
Probably just that.
Okay.
I can't think of anything specific, I guess.
Sure.
Sorry.
And then one more question, if I may. Do you have any intent of connecting to city services with your single-family residence?
No, not at this point. Given location and how far away my residence would actually be from the connections, I'd prefer not to, because of where it's located.
Sure.
So no, I do not.
Okay, very good.
Question.
Sir.
So you're aware if you're not connected to city services, at most you could build 2 residences on that property?
Yes. Yeah, but it's given the acreage size.
Right.
That's what the determining factor is. And for myself, in order for me to maintain, I have to have 5 acres. And so at this point, I'm only talking of 1 residency, and I bought the piece for my family. I want room. I don't like being tight. I don't want a whole bunch of homes right around me, just like the residents there don't want a bunch of homes put down there either. I understand that. So I want the space, but I am very aware, given the size, that if I were to cut it into another piece, that person would have to connect into the city, but I wouldn't, as long as I maintain 5 acres, because of it being city impact.
So at that point, if you connect to city services, then you would have to extend the roads and the water and potentially the sewer.
If another home were to be built there, I guess that would be true.
Can you guys speak up a little bit? There's some folks here who can't hear anything you're saying.
It doesn't seem like the sound system's on.
They're just for recording the video, actually. They don't project, so we will try and
Thank
talk
you. I
louder.
appreciate that.
Sorry.
These folks are a little older and have a hard time hearing.
That's true. Won't deny.
Okay. Is that it for questions? All right, thank you.
That's it.
All right, and we will invite the city.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commission members. Matthew Lewis, Planning Division Manager for the city. The subject 7.09 acre parcel is located in Bannock County and abuts the incorporated city limits along its westerly property line. Jake and Amber Richards submitted a building permit application to Bannock County for a single-family dwelling to be served by an on-site septic system and well for domestic water supply. The building site is proposed to be located at least 400 feet from existing infrastructure located in or near Running Iron Lane, which is not within reasonable distance for extension based on Code Section 13.16.080, connection to proximate sewer required. Reasonable distance is within 300 feet from the parcel's property line. The annexation request was submitted in order to fulfill a condition placed on the building permit application by the county due to the fact that the subject property abuts the city boundary. Specifically, Bannock County Ordinance 326D states that all subdivisions on a city boundary must apply to be annexed into that city which has designated the land to be within its area of city impact, end quote, which this is in area of city impact. D1 of that same section reads, quote, in the event the city declines in writing to annex the development, the county shall hear the application in accordance with its area city impact agreement with the city, or Idaho code shall apply if none exists, end quote. Amber Richards have submitted that they do not wish to have the property annexed into the city and do not wish to have city services, water, or sewer extended to the property. It should be noted that according to Code Section 13.16.080, again, connection to proximate sewer required, that reasonable distance, again, is 300 feet. Where a connection is not possible, a septic system may be permitted provided that 1 acre parcel size exists and the parcel is or can be served by municipal water supply. If the parcel is served by a private water supply and septic, then the minimum lot size of 2.5 acres must be maintained. In the event that the parcel remains in the county jurisdiction, then the minimum 5-acre rule applies. Following a meeting with Captain Glenn Powell representing Pocatello Fire, a follow-up memorandum was submitted via email, which you have in hand. The Pocatello Fire Department is not in favor of annexation based on the need for secondary access and limited access to existing hydrant and reasonable extension of water. Captain Powell knows that until or unless water supply infrastructure adequate to meet the requirements of development is added, no homes or dwelling units could be built beyond 400 feet from the existing hydrant. Scott Patterson, representing Williams Pipeline, submitted correspondence on April 11, 2017, noting that there are 2 high-pressure interstate natural gas transmission lines in the immediate area. They are not in opposition to the annexation. Same correspondence was submitted to the Commission earlier in pre-agenda. All property owners within a 300-foot radius of the land proposed to be annexed and zoned have been notified of the public hearing in order that they may provide comment on the proposed annexation and zoning designation. Notice was also published in Idaho State Journal and a sign posted on the subject property. Staff met with 3 property owners regarding the request in addition to fielding 1 phone call. Staff's recommendation, and actually it was prior to receiving some of this information, particularly with the fire department, but staff recommends that the subject 7.09 acres be annexed in to the corporate boundaries based on the following. 1, future development of the LDS Church Farm property to the south is unknown at this time. However, it is possible that Running Iron Lane and infrastructure such as water and sewer may be extended with development of adjacent lands. If not annexed, and then this is number 2, if not annexed now, the opportunity to annex other lands in this area will not occur in the future because the city could lose the right to annex lands that are not adjacent to the corporate boundary. In the event it is determined that the subject property should be annexed into the corporate boundaries of the city, the following should apply. 1, that upon annexation, the subject property shall be zoned residential medium density single family. This designation is consistent with adjacent residential properties currently within City of Pocatello corporate boundaries. And secondly, conditions as noted by the Public Works Department memo dated March 30th, 2017, attached as Exhibit 2, be followed. That's all I have right now. If you have questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
I have a question if I can. Matt, and you might not know this, but as far as the requirement by the county for somebody that's seeking to build or whatnot to apply for annexation, do you know counties around, say Power County or Bonneville County or whatnot, do you know of any similar requirement that they have? Is this a common thing that is seen around, or?
I'm not aware. No.
Okay, all right, just curious.
As far as the condition of consent that he mentioned, right, I mean, he can't, since he's already submitted the application that is I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but that implies consent, right? I mean, if he wanted to withdraw his consent and withdraw the application, he could do that, but that would not give him the paper he needs to go to the county and say I was rejected.
It is a little odd because it does fall into your typical Category A, where the property owner owns the property. And in this case, because the county says the city needs to act on it, we had one other case, same thing where the property owner was not desirous of annexation, but because they own the property, they fall into that Category A, even though they don't want to be in the city. So it is a Cat A. And a little odd, but that's what it is.
So, what are the other categories as far as that?
We have a Category B. The only categories that we have ever done that I've been associated with in all the years I've been here is a Category A. Category B is usually consent of property owners. If you subdivide property that is, say it was 5 acres in size, and then they subdivide it, then it's possibly ripe for annexation by the city without the owner's consent and so forth. Where you run into issues with that is, for instance, when Century High was constructed, the logical thought was, well, we'll just go down South Fifth Avenue. And there's many property owners that did not want to be annexed. And so Century High had to be annexed in a different manner and basically kind of come across and go kind of a backdoor approach. Cat C, I'm not real sure about. It's a little bit.
Well, the other situation that you talked about was a situation where the county, in essence, told them that they had to apply.
Yeah, it's in their code.
It seems quite unusual, I guess. And just as a first impression, I know what you're saying, but it seems like that classic catch-22 situation, doesn't it? That someone's told you've got to file this application, they're doing it against their consent, they put in the application and say it's against my consent, and then we say, well, it's a consent application, so it falls in Category A. It just seems a little counterintuitive to me, quite honestly.
Mr. Long.
But isn't it true that the county requires that the applicant go the highest requirement, which is the city, not the county, So if we decline his application, then it falls back to the county, which has a less restrictive requirement for building the house.
Yeah, if it's not, so staff doesn't have the authority to say, yeah, annex it or not annex it. So it has to go through that process. And if the council makes a decision that, no, we're not going to annex it because of some of the reasoning and information that's provided to you here, then yeah, it just remains in the county. They go, Mr. Richards goes back to the county and they issue him a permit based on county standards.
Well, and I'm not trying to lawyer up here, and I don't claim any expertise on it, but I did go and look at the statute. I promise I wasn't texting or reading emails. I was pulling up the statute to look back at it, and the statute does provide a procedure under subsection 5, which is what the city is talking about, and it's what the county was talking about, saying that it's land that's concurrent, it's not completely surrounded by.
Yeah. And the important thing is yeah, it's abutting. It's in our area of city impact. It's in the urban service boundary. The city has infrastructure in running Iron Lane, and so it makes sense that the county would say, well, it kind of makes sense that at least the city should look at it.
It does, and I'm not trying to be argumentative with you, but it sort of seems more in line with what the county was talking about here. But this seems like a backdoor procedure for what the county's concerns were, because it says, well, when you're concurrent to the property and you're thinking about it, it goes to the city council, at least as I'm reading subsection 5, saying that the city council can vote as a city council and bring up a procedure to annex it. But it's not an application treating someone as if they're consenting to something that they're saying all along, I'm not consenting, I don't want to do this, it's not what I want, I'm not consenting. And it seems like that's what the legislature adopted to me. I wish, I don't have any case law, don't have anything else, but I'm just saying that there's a section within the code that talks about the very situation where the city has concern. It runs along, but it's not surrounded by the city property, but it runs along and it's an area where you consider future growth. I'll read just a section just for the benefit. Can I read this for the benefit of the other members here? But it's under 5A, and I'll just read through this in the beginning of 5. Annexation procedures. Annexations of lands into a city shall follow the following procedures applicable to the category of this lands as established by this section. The implementation of any annexation proposal wherein the city council determines that annexation is appropriate shall be concluded with the passage of an ordinance of annexation. And then under sub A, procedures for Category A annexations, lands lying contiguous with the city, isn't that what we're talking about here?
Yes.
It's not surrounded, but contiguous.
Yes.
Contiguous or adjacent to any city in the state of Idaho may be annexed by the city if the proposed annexation meets the requirements of Category A. Upon determining that a proposed annexation meets such requirements, the city may initiate the planning and zoning procedure set forth in Chapter 65. And then I guess it does talk about Category B. The lands are, in B1, the lands are contiguous or adjacent to the city and lie within the city's area of impact. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. So it seems to me that that's what that subsection B is. It's contiguous to the city, it's within the area of impact, and it's a decision the city council can make if they choose to bring it up and proceed with it.
Do we have more questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will open the public hearing. Please remember to keep your comments to about 3 minutes, under 3 minutes. State your name and your address when you come up. We would like to entertain anybody that is supports the annexation first to come and speak. Okay.
My name is Jack Robinson, 203 South Garfield. I'd like to thank the Commission for their service on this matter. I think to streamline and keep it in 3 minutes, I think what I want to point out is a couple of features and a couple of requests. If you would turn to Exhibit 4 in your packets, it's the satellite view of the property. The subject property is pretty much the property in brown. And by the way, this map is oriented so it's looking, the top of the page is south. So next to that, and the cul-de-sac or the end of Running Iron Lane is on the right-hand side of the map, kind of in purple or blue. What to point out is that this area is not just going to be an isolated county property. This property is subject to future development. The property immediately to the south there, which is kind of an irregular shaped lot, that belongs to Kim Smith. Right now, as my understanding, that property is landlocked. This property would allow access, and I understand that Mr. Smith was present at the Planning and Zoning when they talked to Matt, when Richards went in to talk to him, so I think that that's coming next. And then the property over on the left that's in green, that's the LDS church farm, and that's in future development. Well, if you do not annex this piece of property, then you lose the opportunity to have annexation involved on the church property. So I want you to be aware of that. Plus, I think there's going to be future development. And in terms of the consent, I mean, if he withdrew his application, that's fine, but he wouldn't comply with the county. And keep in mind that his only access is through the city's road. So the city has a say in this because of their features, because Running Iron Lane is it. Now, the property owners I represent, and I'm an attorney, I do represent several property owners, is that the consensus, they favor annexation, but they also favor the restrictions that's been put in by staff. They think those are comply with the code and are reasonable. But in addition, one of the things that the fire department pointed out is that the Running Iron Lane and the Juniper Hills development does not have a second access. And I know that somebody's going to bring up to you about the fires that have come close and there was not another access out of here. A request would be made to consider including a public access for use in the future for creating an access road south, eventually going into Bannock County. Once you got past Kim Smith's property or the LDS Church property, all of the other property is the LDS Church, so I think it could be done if they decided to develop that piece. The other feature, and if I might approach, I have a copy of the deed. May I approach?
Yeah.
Multiple copies. What I want to point out, this is the last deed of record to my understanding. The applicant is the J.A. Richards Family Management LLC, which I understand is the applicants or the members of the applicants. The last part of the deed says, the last page 2 of 2, it says, pursuant to this deed restrictions, the property may not be split more than once, which means that this piece cannot be split more than once. And I question the reason that we have zoning medium density, because I don't think this property is suitable for that if it can only be split once. In other words, because medium density would allow, with connections to the sewer and other lines, lot sizes of 5,000 square feet, which our position is that the deed would prohibit that. And I think that the other point would be we would need an adequate turnaround for trucks. In other words, this is going to cut through the cul-de-sac, right through the middle of it. There should be an adequate turnaround for garbage trucks, fire trucks, whatever is necessary on this property because that cul-de-sac is going to be affected. So that's a summary of our points. Hopefully I did within 3 minutes. But the point is that we think it's an opportunity. There can be some good planning and zoning that would help enhance the area as opposed to affect it negatively. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tammy Paris. I live at 7052 Running Iron Lane, And if I could approach you, I just want to kind of give you guys some photos. If you haven't been to our property, we would like you to see where we live. Who would like to start passing that way? It's okay if I start with you, Jack? Okay, so don't push the button yet already. Okay, ready? Number one.
Sorry, can I interrupt? Before you give testimony, if you could put your name and address on that sign-in sheet, would really help us. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'll go before you, or I'll go right below you, leave it
So
alone.
you are for or against the annexation?
I am for it.
Okay.
Okay. Picture number one, let's just start. When Richards bought the property, he bought it from Juniper Hills Country Club. Juniper Hills Country Club sets in the city. The only thing of Juniper Hills Country Club that doesn't set in the city is this property. So it's obviously city property. So the number one photo will show you, this is the 13th hole on the green. And the Richards have plowed for their property except where the pipeline is. You can see how close it sets to the golf course. And it's literally going to be a part of the golf course. Number two shows you the view from Richard's house to the golf course. Number three shows you the gate, which the access is in question, which will show the backside of the owner's house. And number four shows you I'm standing in the street looking down from his gate, the street he's going to access, our city street, to get to his property on our cul-de-sac, okay? Number five shows you some more of our houses on our street. And number six shows you his gate, where he plans to access it, where he's already plowing and parked his fifth wheel. Number seven is going to show you how this county line looks. It's just a sad county line. It is a barbed wire fence. One side's Carl Honer's house, which is in the city. This is Richard's property, which is in the county. You have the golf course. That picture will explain that to you. Number eight. As long as we've lived there, that gate's been open. That gate's been open so we could access it if we needed to get out of there in case there's an emergency. Since Mr. Richards moved there, he's put a chain link chain around it and a lock and a no trespassing, no hunting sign. But Mr. Richard hunts there. He sets up decoys, shoots geese right next to our houses. He has set up a target, shot a rifle next to our houses where we have several little kids living. And I don't understand that. And I think that's part of the reason why I wanted annexed into the city, because we shouldn't be shooting firearms that close to a house. And I guess if it takes annexing into the city to explain that, that would be great. And number nine, the Charlotte fire. We all remember the fire, and we remember it well. I would really like you to look at this picture because it shows how close it got to our houses. It literally jumped Bannock Highway on the 18th hole where we all live. And if we would have not got out, fire trucks, nobody could have saved us. I mean, it was terrible. And it's important. These fires are important. And the other thing I have to say about that, that was in 2012, and since then, we've had another fire. Brad Frazier's house on Running Iron Lane caught on fire, his garage. And we were fortunate it happened in the night, because if it was during the day, none of us could have got out. I can't stress that enough as homeowners, why we have to get this right. This needs to be annexed into the city, and it needs to be brought up to code. We need to have a street. If he's going to punch a street through our street, then it needs to be a street up to code that's a public street that utility trucks can turn around in. Because it's our cul-de-sac. We bought a property with the cul-de-sac. Let's remember that. And this just shows the fire, the Charlotte fire. That was right behind the 18th hole before it jumped Bannock Highway. So it's a real deal. Fires will happen. And this is right by his property showing the fire when it happened. And to me, I'm passionate about it as a homeowner because I have great neighbors, great friends, and all I want to do is keep our place. You know, I'm fine with them building a house. I get it. It needs to be up to code, though. It needs to be done right, and it needs to be a part of the city, and it needs to be hooked up to city services. We don't need a septic system, right? Another septic system, you know. We have city services that are right there. And I'm just passionate about it, and I thank you for your time. That's what I have to say.
Do you have any more in favor?
Yeah. My name's Zachary Paris. I live at 7052 Running Iron Lane. and I am in favor of annexation for much the same reasons that my wife was just talking about. But what I want to say is the way this is being presented is, and this is just me, maybe I'm wrong, and I've sat in lots of planning and zoning meetings. I used to represent the county, and I was their civil attorney. I've been in thousands of hours of hearings. But the way this is being presented, it sounds like, okay, I'm going to build one house there. We all know that's not true, because Kim Smith owns a piece of property. Both he and Mr. Richards came in when they applied with the city office, and they told the city that they want to build 3 2.5-acre lots there, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But I just want you to know there's more to the story than what's being exposed here. And if they're going to build homes down there, what they're making it sound like is, well, Running Iron Lane is not up to code. It's not. It was built 40 years ago, 1978. We all know how things were done in 1978. Things have changed. We've had people die because of fires, because of the way we did things in 1978. This ain't 1978. He wants to access his property on a cul-de-sac road, street, that's not up to code, and implies that, well, gee, if I have to put my road into code, then we have to make Running Iron Lane into code. We don't need it up to code. I've been there, some of these people have been there 25 years. It's not up to code, but we can get by with it. Well, now he wants to make it a through street, and he wants to put, apparently, a gravel road at the end of that through street with properties surrounding the golf course. And all I'm saying is I welcome his application. I welcome him into the neighborhood. But all I'm saying is he needs to put a road in that's up to code. Why? Because the fire marshal's telling you, I can't get a fire truck down there and turn it around if there's a fire. I can't get out. Brad Fraser's property caught on fire in the middle of the night, had 2 or 3 other structures caught on fire. None of us would have got out of there. And the point is if he's going to put in a road, then let's have it so it's up to code, so we have a way to get out, number one, so we have a way to fight fires. And we've had fires. The church farm sits right abutting this property. Who's to say we don't have a brush fire down there? It comes in and wipes us all out. It can happen. It has happened. The other thing I want to tell you is that this property, if you look at the big picture, is not just a budding city property, but when they annexed the property from the city over to Century High School, they did it from the west side. So if you look at the map, this property's about half sandwiched between 2 city. It's abuts our property on Running Iron Lane, and if you look to the northeast, the city, when they annexed Century High School, that's how they did it. So their city pretty much on all sides except to the south is what I'm suggesting to you. And so all I'm saying is if we're going to have neighbors building a nice home, which I'm sure they will, then let's have curb and gutter. Let's have services. Let's have a road that's up to code so that we don't have any problems and get sued later. The other thing I'd ask you to do is, real quick, is in Idaho Code, you're familiar with this, you're a lawyer, Title 67, Chapter 65, 6511, Big A, talks about development agreements. And I would encourage the city to enter into a development agreement with these folks so you know exactly what they're going to build and what they're not going to build. And recognizing the deed is restricted what they can do with the property. So that way, we're all, it's above board, it's all clean, and there's no problems. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate your service.
Hello, my name is Jason Cottle. I live at 7070 Running Iron, one house away from this proposed property. I'm in favor of annexation. I'm also in favor of connecting to city services and putting in a street with the appropriate up to code. The other thing I'd like to bring up is eventually I see the Portland of Greenbelt coming all the way down in here, and if it's landlocked, there's not a street there. How will us as property owners who live 100 yards from that not be able to access it? So I would like there to see some sort of access to it as well. Thank you.
Margaret Herzog, and my husband and I, Vern, live at 6851 Running Iron Lane, and he and I are here tonight to express our interest in having the city annex that piece of property that's been under discussion. I think Tammy and Zach Paris have spoken it well, and I do not need to continue on with anything about repeating that. But the Charlotte fire was mentioned, and just want to say at 6851, the fire jumped the road just behind our house, and my husband stepped out behind our hedge, which is the property line with the golf course. He could not face that fire without putting his hands up to his face. It was that hot. We had a tile roof, for which we were very grateful at the time. And not that it came that close, but it was very frightening. I went across the road, Bannock Highway, and on up the hill on the east side of where we live. So I could see if the fire had sort of jumped a different direction, going up toward Johnny Creek, which is where our son lives, and his wife and child at that time. And they both were away. All three were away, the child too. And I wanted to see if they were in danger. Luckily they weren't, but I was gone 15 minutes, came back and couldn't get to my house. They'd been evacuated. Now this is an unusual situation, as you all remember, very frightening for everybody, and I think it's left permanent scars of remembrance and tragedy for everybody. We've got to do what we can, I feel, and I believe that my husband concurs, with the policies that have already been set in motion by a lot of people who were involved in the creation of those over the years, so that we can be a modern city to take care of the residents. And I might add, something that hasn't been said right yet, is the four-footed animals that live in our neighborhood. We have a wonderful array of wildlife that lives there. The greatest array is in the deer population, but there have been moose that have been there on our street, and a lot of geese, ducks. We've seen coyotes and red fox. It's a pathway for those deer from the hills to the west, coming down, going across Bannock Highway, and many of them getting killed, of course, but crossing over to get to the Portneuf. And we would like to see the creation of an area that not only makes it comfortable for those of us with two legs, not only now, but in the future. And as we know, the city wants to develop our community so that it will attract businesses to come in and our economy will improve. So please keep that in mind, that Tammy and Zach have both said with regard to recommendations, let's say, to the City Council with regard to keeping the policies in hand as they are and not letting them slip by to make things much more lax. We like where we live very much. We care about wildlife, the river, and our aquifer, which is Idaho's largest lake, even though we can't see it. Thank you. Is this what we signed?
Yes.
Thanks.
Do we have any more that would like to speak in favor? I mean, if you're in favor but don't have anything to add, that's fine to stay seated. All right, we will now go on.
Oh, go ahead. Come
Sorry.
on. Don't be shy.
I missed you. Please come up.
Back out at the last minute. My name is Melissa Cottle. I lived at 7070 Running Iron Lane. I'm in favor of annexation and want to welcome you and hope that you'll join the Homeowners Association. We have an amazing neighborhood, but we do want to make sure that it's annexed and that it's done correctly, and that I'm in favor of connecting to city services to protect the wildlife, the area, the aquifer, and the Portneuf River. Thank you.
Sign, would you please sign?
We have a long address.
All right, now we will go on to anybody that would like to speak opposed to this annexation.
Can I say more? Am I allowed to get up?
You get a rebuttal after it's all done.
At the end?
Later.
I'll let you. Okay, so we have no one that's going to speak opposed. With that, then we will close the public hearing.
You want his testimony?
The public hearing is closed. And we will invite the property owner to
Rebuttal of what's
speak again.
been said.
I really appreciate the comments. I think there are some very good comments that are made, and of course I expect these people to be my neighbors, and so I'm totally welcome to hear what they have to say. But I do think that there was some misinformation, and I would really like to clarify that. And I know that Merrill was, both of these gentlemen over here were part of the meeting in which I was. Someone said, I guess, Kim Smith came with me, and that has never happened. I know Kim Smith very well, but we never went to a meeting together, and I believe that these gentlemen would back me up on that because I don't know where that came from. In any case, I do know that he owns that property. He's made mention of building there, I guess. I haven't talked to him about it. He and I don't talk about that. In any case, they bring up great concerns. Open space, that's why I'm moving there. I don't like the closed space. I don't want a development. I know the thought is that I might build multiple homes there. I really don't want to. That is not my intent, and I get it. And I agreed to the terms of only splitting it once, you know what I mean, with the deed that was done at the time. I was part of the agreement in that. I didn't wait for them to tell me what I could and couldn't do with it. So I get some of that stuff. Shooting guns, all right, I heard that, and I've actually never set up decoys. I've never hunted down there before for any animals. That was one of the reasons I actually put up the fence and put the lock on there. However, if you were to talk to Ron, the manager of the golf course there, when we were looking to buy the property, he had to go unlock the gate for me to get in, okay? So they had a different lock on there at a time. I actually put that up because I thought it was helpful because I knew there were people going out there and shooting the geese. And I'm not. And I did go out and set up a target. I did go out and shoot my rifle. I made sure I was more than 150 yards from the city property line, and I shot north-south, not directed toward the city. Yes, I did do that. I'm not going to lie about that. I also shot my bow out there. I'm not going to lie about that. That did happen. But I made sure I was outside those regulations that I've looked into to make sure that I'm okay in doing that. I don't want to offend people. I understand it. That's reasonable. But I don't like the goose hunters going out there and doing it on my property either. And that is why I put up the signs, because I didn't want people going out there because I thought it was actually a nuisance. And that's kind of why I put it up. I understand the thoughts about access and then being worried about the fire, but I was a little confused in the fact that one comment was, I want to be on a cul-de-sac, but yet I want another access out, and you can't have both in many cases. That's kind of what a cul-de-sac is. So, again, some of it just a little bit confusing to me, but the fence that's there, it is ugly. I want to change it really bad. I understand that they want it to look nicer next to the golf course. If you see it now, there's just big piles of dirt that came from the golf course. I want to clean all that stuff up. I don't want it there either. I actually feel like I do have a lot of the same intentions of what they're thinking of as well. And I know they want it done right, and I think that's great. I have no problem with that. I agree with them on that. But I guess I'm not exactly sure why I need to be a part of the city to accomplish those things. I'd be worried if it was my property that they would make it look like trash and do that kind of stuff, and that's 100% not my intent, and I don't want to do anything like that. there was something brought up about not being able, in your guys' documents, not being able to annex other properties. The city actually abuts every single property that touches mine right now. Every single one. If you were to look on that, you would see that that's the case. I'm not in the way of anybody. If the city abuts every other property, I'm not in the way. So I don't understand that one as well. There is still a piece of property that is owned by the golf course that is also still county, just for reference as well. All right? It's the remaining piece that's just, I have to think about it again, it's just north on the same side of the river. That's actually still in the county as well. There was talk about the fire and that kind of stuff. There was actually a small fire on the golf course this last year in which I gave them access for the fire truck to go around through the property to cross the golf course river in one spot where they could barely get the truck across to go over to the railroad track to try to put out that fire. I have no problem with them having access to go through to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, they went from city, and it was a city truck going across county property, which I was more than happy for them to do, to go over and take care of the fire along the railroad track. I get that stuff. I'm trying to think of some other things that were brought up just so I could try to clarify. There was one thing brought up about me putting in a street to code. I don't want to put in a street. I want a driveway. Right? I just want it to my house. I don't want a big street that comes up to my house. So I'm not looking to extend a road. I want a driveway. Mine's just longer. You know, it'd be my responsibility to take care of that driveway. And initially, I guess it's gravel because you don't put in the pavement until everything's done. But I would like to pave it. I would like to make it nice. Again, this is my long-term home, and I want to live there as far as I can see, not just for a couple of years just to sell it for a profit. I really don't want it. I plan on being here. I'm embedded in the community. I have a business here in town. I want to be a part of those things. So, yeah, I get their concerns. I don't have any problems with what they said, as long as they're, some of the information is clarified. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions that they may have personally. It doesn't bother me to talk. Talk is easy, talk is simple, and I think communication is important. So I was trying to think if there's anything else that was hit on that I felt like wasn't quite there that I'd love to clarify, but I at this time can't think of a ton. One of the things that you guys have in the goals, Land Use Chapter 3, Goal 4, preserve open spaces surrounding within the city by developing an orderly and well-integrated and compact pattern of land use. That's what we're looking to do here, is keep open space, right? I'm not trying to close it up by putting a whole bunch of houses and stuff down there. I'm not trying to utilize that space to the point that we lose some of that open space as well. That is my intent. So I still see the costs associated with it becoming the way that it is, and it just seems like such a big hassle to me. But I'm new. Okay, I'm not going to pretend I've done this 100 times, and I'm not planning on doing it again. But I don't see that it is a cost-effective way for the city for them to be able to build things the way they're supposed to be. I was told that it would have to be done to code by the two gentlemen sitting over here. They're the ones that gave me counsel when I did sit down with them and told me that they did not see the value in annexing my property, even though they told you differently today. That wasn't what I thought they were going to say, and that's okay. But it obviously seems that they've changed their mind on what they want to do, and that wasn't what was presented to me. But I open conversation. I'm open to it, and I'm more than happy to talk about it more. But I still am opposed to annexation.
Can I ask a question?
All right.
So here's my question. It seems like this piece, whether it happens now or sometime in the future, where it abuts city property, will at some time or another come into the city. And again, whether that's now or in the future. And you want to make this your long-term area, but do you have concerns about that? I mean, if the city comes and then, say the church farm starts to develop out, and Kim Smith's property starts to develop out, and something wants to happen there, would your position then be at that point to oppose the annexation as well as everything around you is being annexed?
Well, there becomes a point that it doesn't make sense.
Right.
And that's, when everybody surrounds you, I get it. I understand that. But there is no plan. No one has a plan for any of that. Am I wrong in that? Okay, so why are we speculating a plan that no one has? We can say that about anywhere in town. And we can speculate stuff anywhere we want to in town about what may be. But no one has a plan. There's nothing there. Why hasn't someone planned on this a long time ago and already annexed it? Why didn't somebody buy the property a long time ago and develop it? I haven't been around. It doesn't matter. But the point is yeah, that very well could happen. But speculating that this is all of a sudden going to happen, well, why would they go through running iron? These people don't want it to go through running iron necessarily. I wouldn't think. I could be wrong. But they don't necessarily want everybody to be driving right past their house to this 100-home development when the church owns all the way up to Bannock Highway in multiple locations, so they could access from there just as easy as through running iron anyway. So why would they go through running iron when they can come off the highway much easier and build it how that they want to? So long term, who knows? There isn't a plan, so it's hard to say how it would really go long term.
Sure.
Mr. Richard, are you done?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Richards, you've heard and you said that you want this to be your long-term home, and you heard these are your future neighbors.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope so.
Driving up and down their street, and you've heard their concerns about fire trucks being able to turn around.
Yep.
And the difficulty. You've heard a letter was received today from the fire department expressing concerns.
Yep.
And already have enough difficulty. So how do you respond to that? Do you have any thoughts where you can give some area for a turnaround even if it's not annexed, or something that can be done to address these concerns on this street?
Well, and if you look at the exhibit number 4 that you guys have there, if these lines are accurate, there's multiple homes along there that if this road were brought to code would lose some of the frontage right there, right? I know there's some nice mailboxes and things like that. Again, if this line is accurate, there are mailboxes that would have to be moved. There's cement, people's driveways and things like that that would literally be cut into for these things to be done. And if they're for it, they're for it. I don't know that they all are, but if they are, they're for it. At the very end, it looks like if this cul-de-sac were to be brought into code as well, that it, and I could be looking at it a little bit wrong, but it may cut into Mr. and Mrs. Honer's place a little bit more as well to make that cul-de-sac, that turnaround better. If there were a compromise, I'm willing to advocate and I'm willing to go along with that. One concern to be advised, though, is the pipeline. Because how far in would you have to go to make that cul-de-sac viable for a turnaround? Because that pipeline, that city line is almost right on the easement of the pipeline, which, again, I apologize, I don't have the ones for that pipeline. They gave me the ones for the other one that's a little bit south, but as soon as I have that, I would know how much more that is. Does that make sense? So I'm not opposed to that. If there were a compromise or something we could do, I don't have a problem with that. I don't need 7 acres for everything that I want to do. I'm more than willing to look at options to try to give them space into those different things, but at the same time, if I'm annexed into the city, it's different. There's other regulations that come into it. There's other things, and then I have to decide if I think it's worth it for me as well. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Did you have a...
No.
All right. Well, thank you then. All right, do we have any discussion or motion?
I have a couple of questions for Matt.
Okay, you'd like to bring up city...
Matt, could you come back up for a minute? Please.
Mr. Chair, Commission members.
Am I correct in this assumption that this property cannot be subdivided more than 2 pieces? But Mr. Richards could actually start his driveway, a private driveway, at that cul-de-sac and access his property without having to upgrade any services. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if Mr. Smith, I think you said that Mr. Smith's property was landlocked? Or is it accessible off that cul-de-sac?
It's accessible off the cul-de-sac, as far as I know.
Right now?
No, it's not.
No, they'd have to go through.
They'd have to go through yours.
There's, my understanding is an easement on the Beckstead's, or it used to be Beckstead's place. So
Right.
Mr. Harris would have to answer that.
Okay, so there may be an easement across your property.
Not my property, across Mr. Harris's property.
Yeah, that Jason.
So this is different.
So it could be that little piece right there. Okay. So that piece of property actually is not landlocked either, and they could access that off the cul-de-sac.
Beckstead sold that property to Kim Smith, and it never got developed because Beckstead wanted to run an easement through his yard because it sets past the cul-de-sac.
Speak to the record.
Sorry to answer, but I was just explaining.
Just out of the audience.
All right, but apparently there's an easement there somewhere, so this piece that Smith owns now is not in fact landlocked.
It's landlocked.
My understanding is the only access he would have is Mr. Richards' access, but that's my understanding.
Okay, then the next question, Matt, is they could enter into an agreement to use that private drive, and it would not have to be a street, because there's enough land here to put in septic systems and drill wells. Is that correct?
Yes. And as I noted in my presentation, where the building, where the residence is going to be constructed is beyond the reasonable distance of infrastructure, meaning extension of water and sewer in the road. If in reasonable extension is 300 feet from the property line to the development.
And even if the city annexes this, they cannot force Mr. Richards to put in the street across his property as a second access.
So again, when you go to the section that deals with Code Section 13.16.080, if they're not hooked in, if they're hooked into water, or actually if they're hooked in into water, then the minimum lot size that they would need, even if it's in the city, would be 1 acre. That would be with septic. If they don't have septic and they're not hooked into water, and 2.5 acres is your minimum.
But the property can only be divided in 2 pieces as per the deed.
Yeah.
So.
And we don't get involved with what's in the deed, but our requirement would be what's in code.
Are you saying, Mr. Lewis, even if they're annexed, that they could be annexed and not be required to hook up to septic?
Yes.
And could put in their own septic tank at that point, not be hooked up to the city sewer lines, not hooked up.
So the real question here is, again, when you go to my staff report and you look at the two reasons of why we, after further thinking this through as planner, as staff, was the 2 reasons that I came to of why you would want to consider annexation. And that was the proximity and the
difficulty for future properties.
Yeah. And and it could act as another outlet to adjacent properties. But it is possible that if it's not annexed, then yes, the Century High was annexed from the other side, and it goes across, it goes along the river, and so the corporate boundaries are there. It's possible that this property could become that landlocked, and if it does, then the city could go in and just annex it.
Do you have any more questions for Matt?
Just one more question. Smith's property is or is not in the city?
It is not.
It is not. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now we entertain any discussion or motion.
I move that we accept the annexation.
We recommend approval.
And recommend approval.
And authorize.
And authorize the chairman to sign the record of facts.
Okay, so we have Brennan recommending approval. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Hancock seconds.
Discussion.
You go ahead and call.
Is there discussion?
Oh, is there discussion on the motion? If you'd like to discuss the motion.
Okay, so you're recommending that we approve with all the terms and conditions that the staff has outlined?
Yes.
Okay, and are you going to make any mention of the street?
Well,
or are you going to make
no,
this an R?
I cannot, because they can build on this property even if it's in the city without a street. So
Without curb and gutter, without connecting to the
they
services.
can use their private driveway, which they would have to put in anyway. So,
And their own well and septic tank. Okay.
And that was my understanding in seconding it, that it's annexed within the city services, consideration of those future things that the city brought into concern, but it still allows the homeowners to not connect to city services now, allows them to put in their private drive and to, in essence, develop the way they're intending or have expressed their desire tonight, but it allows for that future growth and things that the city's talking about.
I don't believe the city can force them to put an exit road across their property. I'd love to see it. I don't think that can be done. I mean,
Without their consent.
without their consent. Now, there is still some potentially development issues. And this would get to your point, Mr. Robinson, that there may be a development agreement, but I don't believe you can force these people to put an exit road across their property unless they see a need for it as well. Or and they enter into some kind of an agreement with Mr. Smith for that development, and depending on the density, then an exit road may be required.
Okay.
A secondary exit.
If there's no more discussion, then let's call the question.
Okay, Brennan?
Yes?
Hancock?
Yes.
Long?
Yes.
O'Connor?
Yes.
Satterfield?
No.
Loveland?
Yes. So motion passes. It will go before City Council at a later date. This is just a recommendation to City Council. It still has to be decided by them. With that, we'll adjourn. I don't think we need a motion to adjourn. We better start that.
I was going to, don't know where I came, but well, enjoy your list of